Is there anything better than fresh rocket on a warm summer's day? Box swimmer, or hi everyone, and welcome to Grow, Make, Cook. This summer has just been tumultuous, highs, lows, some beautiful days and some complex things happening. So this week we're just celebrating in all of the glorious abundance that you have in a summer garden.
Bok, I'm Mandy O. This is Grow, Make, Cook, and welcome to my garden. I grew up in Australia in a permaculture family, but after we got married, Mr. O and I moved here to his home country of Croatia. I am a passionate and hands-on homemaker and gardener, and I love life's simple pleasures. So join me on my journey, and together we can learn to grow, make, and cook. This is the 4th week in August, or Kolovos.
What I'm harvesting here is baby rocket leaves. This is densely planted rocket that I just scattered seed for, and I've been harvesting it like a cut and come again lettuce, which means that it's quite densely planted. There's very little spacing between plants, and I just come through and chop the whole top off, and we eat all of these lush, tender, baby little leaves. And these I'm just throwing in with some leftover roast vegetables as a kind of cool summer salad. It's one of the things I love about summer cooking, is great big meals, heated up and enjoyed the first time, but then the kind of casual regard you have for those leftovers that then turns into a plethora of meals to come. Another thing that really makes me very grateful for a garden and the richness that it can bring is zucchinis. Tikvitse or zucchinis are just such prolific vegetables that I feel like you can never really find enough good ways to use them. So I've got one, I'll share. There are a few things more that I'm going to need for our simple supper from the garden tonight. So that is a handful of herbs. I am making the salad with the rocket and leftover roast veggies, and I'm going to make some zucchini spread. Stick with me, I know it sounds a little bit odd, but this garlicky zucchini delight makes for the perfect accompaniment to fresh bread. The herbs that I am using for my zucchini spread are a little bunch of parsley, a sprig of fresh rosemary, and a little clump of fresh oregano, if I can find a couple of nice looking sprigs. They'll do. Ooh. Yeah, that's good. All right. Let's head to the kitchen. I've just freshly washed my zucchinis, and you can see that the ingredients for my spread, I guess, are really simple. It's zucchinis, a whole lot of garlic, fresh herbs, and a couple of tablespoons of mayonnaise. The first thing I'm going to do is just grate my zucchinis. I'm using a coarse grater so that the pieces are quite large, and we just want to make sure that this makes it nice and consistent. Now that I've got all of that zucchini grated, I have just popped a dash of oil in the bottom of my pan just to stop it sticking, and then I'm going to start frying this down. It'll take a little bit because it needs to kind of break down the fibers a little bit and shrink. But what I've got here is just those 2 large zucchinis, and it should turn into a moderate amount of spread. I don't actually recommend making this one in too larger quantities. Enough to put into a normal sized jar to use over maybe 2, maybe 3 days is enough. This is not something that has any preservative in it, and I don't process it to keep it in the jars. And you couldn't with mayonnaise in it anyway. So this is a thing that you make just to eat. The next step is one which varies. I, in this recipe, use the kind of quantities of garlic which show a reckless disregard for other people's nostrils and even sometimes taste buds. I'm probably putting in most of that that whole head. It's a huge quantity of garlic. But then, I adore garlic, and I just feel that the more the merrier, really. So, I'm just crushing probably about 9 cloves of garlic into that fry pan while there's still quite a lot of liquid and juice in the zucchini. Now that the liquid has started to come out of the zucchinis and they're starting to really cook down, I'm going to turn my attention to my herbs. Now, what I'm doing is I'm just stripping the leaves off of the oregano, anything with the hard stem like the rosemary, and just going to finely chop the parsley. Now, this recipe I'm using 3 herbs, and that's, I think, the right sort of quantity of variety for this recipe. But the only real must-have for me in this recipe is the rosemary. I've also done this recipe with marjoram and oregano. I've done it with chives and marjoram. I've done it with parsley and chives and rosemary. Anything that goes with that real rich flavour will work nicely in this. So don't be afraid to play around with the different herbs that you've got either freshly available or that you can find in a nice leafy fresh sort of state. Now that that zucchini has really started to cook down and the liquid has mostly gone out of the pan, you can't see any real liquid anymore, I'm adding all of that lovely fresh herbs. It makes it really rich in flavour when you add those herbs right at the end. It's kind of almost like a salad in its leafiness, and it'll just sort of gently simmer into this now. I've turned my heat right down too at this stage so that they're kind of gently cooking the flavours of the herbs in. We don't want to be too rough with these herbs. We're treating them quite gently. Now that that is nicely combined and it's starting to almost look a little bit pasty almost, I'm turning the heat off. And I'm going to let that just slowly cool in the pan for probably about half an hour. So I'm going to turn my attention to the salad. All I'm doing for my lovely fresh salad is all of that beautiful fresh baby rocket from the garden and some leftover roast veggies. These are done in passata, a little bit of finely chopped parsley and some pepper. And all that I'm going to do is just pop all of our lovely fresh carrots and homegrown zucchinis and squash and new potatoes all into there after this has been cooled. So this is cold, and I'm going to toss it together just with some olive oil so that everything is coated with the rich flavors of summer vegetables and fresh, crunchy, bitey rocket. It's a nice twist on a traditional salad where a lot of the things that you get a lot of in summer, like carrots and zucchinis, they're kind of seen as traditional vegetables that would be cooked and roasted and treated in a really traditional way. And this is a nice way to use up some of those lovely roast veggies, but in something a little bit more fresh and summery. Now that this is completely cool, it's cold now, room temperature, I'm going to start putting it together with the mayonnaise, just a little bit at a time so that I can mix it together at the end. I love these flip top jars for things that just go into the fridge. Of course, if I'm processing things like jams or preserves, I always try and make sure that I have, you know, the correct lids and the correct jars and the right processing times. But for things like this, things that are just going straight in the fridge to eat now, you can use these pretty decorative jars. All right, now that we've got all of that in there almost, I'll get this all together. I just layer them up like this to make it easier to mix them together. All we're really doing is combining our zucchini with herbs and garlic and some mayonnaise so that you've got a rich, creamy spread to go on your bread. It makes funny sounds, but it does taste good. Beautiful. A light and delicious supper. Lovely fresh salad and fresh and delicious spread. Easy food and quick food. Doesn't have to be unhealthy food. But I think that's probably about all we've got time for today. So if you like what we're doing, please like the video. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you want notifications, use the bell icon below. Thanks for watching. And until next time, do widzenia.